But I think that the cadence, putting it in the calendar, having both of us look forward to it, and now having the experience of 70 or so in the can, we've worked out a few kinks, so at the beginning, I suppose there was a bit of nervous energy. That's gone.
Today's guest is Mark Aylward, a no-fluff executive coach who's helped hundreds of professionals find clarity, purpose, and peace, not just in their work, but in their lives. I asked Mark on the show because he has a gift for cutting through the noise and getting people to see what actually matters. In this episode, we talk about how to make big decisions with less stress, why mindset always precedes momentum, and how to move forward when everything around you feels stuck. In today's episode, it comes down to this. If you want better outcomes, start by asking yourself better questions. Mark, thanks for joining me on The Marketer. It's really awesome to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Monty. I'm looking forward to this.
I am too. This is going to be a great conversation because we're going to be talking about podcasting, which is, obviously a love of mine, and why people quit and what it takes to succeed. So I'm looking very much forward, if you would, to hearing your thoughts on some issues. Just by way of introduction and stuff, Mark, will you kind of share how you got into podcasting? What inspired you to do this show and this medium?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was reflecting on it earlier. I think there's a kind of an intersection of events. My daughter was a film major, and when she graduated, she's 35 now. And for about the last 5-6 years, part of her business is helping people produce podcasts. She's very gifted in the video and audio space, very creative. And it might be worth mentioning to your audience at some point. I'll leave that up to you. But I was watching her start to tell stories through her podcast. And I've always fancied myself as a storyteller. I like telling stories. I like hearing stories. My dad's a storyteller. So it was really this intersection of storytelling and having this access to this young woman who I know, love, and trust, who is having fun with this and really doing a good job. And subsequently, I bumped into a guy who's become a very good friend of mine, also probably 5 or 6 years ago. I was doing some work in the overcoming trauma space, and Jim, my podcasting partner, and I met through that vehicle. And it's a longer story for another time, but we became fast friends, and he shared some stuff with me and I shared some stuff with him. We're both dads, we're both entrepreneurs, we're both athletes, a lot in common. Similar worldviews. And we just started talking about maybe that would be pretty cool to do a podcast. So I reached out to my daughter and I said, can you help? And she said, yes. And then she helped us for the first 5 episodes. Everybody was telling us, put 5 in the can before you tell anybody about it. It's probably good advice. I don't really know. And she did the graphics work and the editing and the sound quality and all this other stuff because I don't have that capability, and nor does Jim. And then life got busy for her and we lost our resource. And we both have other consulting businesses that we run in different capacities, different streams of income. So we decided to put it on the shelf, but the idea never went away. It was always something we knew we were going to get back to. And about a year later, I just said, look, let's both get good mics. Let's both get good cameras. You're all in for like less than $100. It's not that difficult.
Right.
And I said, we're not going to do any intros. We're not going to do any music or any outros. We'll just start talking like you and I did for a sec after we hit record. And then I'll just chop that beginning off and I'll make the introduction. And so now, 70 episodes later, once a week, we're clicking, we're hitting a groove. We're much more comfortable talking, much more comfortable on video, and taking that work away really did 2 things for us. It allowed us to be consistent, and it allowed us to continue, and it brings a level of authenticity to the podcast that I really enjoy. I don't edit out anything. If you sneeze, I don't edit the doorbell, and I don't edit out anything. And it's really, looking back on it, it's pretty cool. Anyway, long-winded answer, but that's how it started.
So what was the initial goal of the show? Why did you, I know you've got a good buddy to do it with you, but what were you hoping to accomplish with it?
It was really about producing content on a different medium in support of all the other content that I produce. And I'd like to think, Monty, that if you go read any of my stuff on LinkedIn, or you read any of my workbooks or watch any of my videos or listen to my podcast, you're going to be like, that's Mark. That's consistent. It just opened up another avenue for me to share some of my knowledge and my wisdom, because my career was spent helping people find work. And there's nothing that people need professionally right now more than somebody who knows how to do that. So I just wanted to make myself more accessible to more people. And my kids, when I helped them find work out of school many years ago, they all said to me, Dad, you got to share this with other people. There's no one else teaching what you know. And so that was very motivating for me as well. And that's what I do now. I help people in professional transition.
So yours is very much a teaching related show. Your goal for that is when anybody watches any of your episodes, they're going to learn something that's going to benefit them in their career, selecting their career or advancing their career in some way.
Yeah, and it really bleeds into the personal development place too, just because of the way that I see the world. I when I was a recruiter and then started my own company in recruiting, it was always relationship driven stuff. It was always getting to know the person, their family, their wishes and desires, and that. And just as a point of correction, we don't use the video. We capture the video, but we only release the audio right now.
Oh, okay.
So we're not. We got it all, and we may use it at some point, but I don't have any bandwidth to get a VA or an editor in and say, take this 100 hours of video and chop it up into 60-second bites. But we may soon. So
in those early days when you just started getting going, what were some of the challenges that you faced? And you had at the time, you had your daughter who was doing a great job from the technical aspect of it with your editing and so on and so forth. But just in the show itself, it's a different medium. I mean, you're turning a camera on, you're having a conversation. Even though you don't have a live audience at the beginning, you do have a live audience now. Is that correct? Are you doing a live show?
No. I've done some LinkedIn live work separate from this, but no, we've had one or two guests, which is a really different experience. We weren't prepared for it, and so we learned from it. And so we're playing around with it on a couple of levels, but we just use the audio right now. And my daughter hooked us up on Libsyn, which spits it out to like 7 different platforms all at once. Mm-hmm. The publishing piece is very simple.
Yeah. So there's, I guess what I was getting at there at the beginning, kind of what were maybe some of the mental challenges or the hurdles? Because, when you turn something on and you're going to start to talk, and now this is you, right? It's you, it's your voice, it's your video, whatever it may be that you're going to be putting out there to the world. Was it challenging? Was there anything that you had to overcome mentally to, pursue this?
Yeah, being in sales my whole life probably makes me a little bit more confident about talking. But you're right. This at the beginning, I remember this now kind of fondly. You're a little more formal than you become. You're a little less authentic. You're trying to present. You're not trying to pretend, but you feel the need to be like impressive or interesting or enthusiastic or whatever. Just like, no, dude, just be yourself. Just be yourself. Yeah. That took a while. I don't know how many episodes. I don't remember, but it was a few. And the commitment to that there was also that voice in your head, like, who the hell are you to be giving people advice? Who do you think you are? This self-doubt, inner critic, whatever you want to call it. There's a handful of limiting beliefs that get in the way when you reach out and do something new. And this was no different, but we've learned a lot.
I think imposter syndrome is a major player, in people starting podcasts, just like what you said. My show obviously is called The Marketer. And when you put that out there, it's like, oh, well, you're communicating that you know all about marketing. And no, I don't. When I say The Marketer, it's really truly about my guests, and people that are coming in to share their knowledge and experience and expertise with the audience. But imposter syndrome does have a lot to play in it because, it is more than just putting out a social post that you're going to write or a blog or anything else. This medium is very unique in creating a persona, right? And that persona is you. And when you say, yeah, just be yourself, that's truly the secret, but sometimes that's hard to overcome. How did you guys do it?
I think it's practice. Interestingly enough, Jim and I bring two different sets of skills to the table, different styles of talking. Jim happens to be dyslexic. So if there's anything to be read, I'm the one that usually reads it. We learned that the hard way, and we've had a lot of fun with that. He's very capable of making fun of himself because his story is he used his dyslexia to become successful and overcame it. So it's a good story. But yeah, it's just practice. I think if you watch or listen to the first one and then listen to the last one we just did, I think you'd see a marked difference. And you got to turn the camera on, you got to turn the mic on, and you just got to go.
It truly is just as simple as that, honestly. If you think about it, riding a bike, you got to get on the thing and you got to, have somebody push you and help you along. But truly, it is up to you to start investing in that. I know that one of the things that limits people as well is what you said. Podcasts take a lot of work. It's a lot of production, and sounds like you've overcome that by saying, okay, we're just going to be raw, right? We're not gonna put any icing on it. It's just going to be, here's the ingredients and take it for what it is. I know another thing that really limits people is consistency. The average podcast only lasts 7 episodes.
Yeah.
And the reason it does is because people find out very quickly how much work podcasting takes.
Yeah.
So has consistency been a problem with you ever? You have, how many episodes did you say you're in now?
I think we're coming up on 70. Yeah.
70 episodes.
Yeah. Weekly.
So how do you keep that fresh? How do you, on a weekly basis, how are you going, okay, this is a topic that people will want to hear about, and without repeating and just kind of becoming a broken record around the same topics?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And it was, the challenge we had when we lost my daughter 5 episodes in, we took a year off, maybe longer. I didn't actually look at those dates recently, but so I guess you could say consistency was a problem right out of the gate, but we never lost that. We're going back to that at some point. And I don't even remember when I decided to suggest the raw, but it opened up the world to us. It was just like, oh my God, that was such a simple thing to think of. Let's just do that. We've both consciously lived pretty interesting lives, and Jim's a good storyteller. And, we're consciously thinking when we go through life between Thursday and the next Wednesday. We record every Wednesday at 1:00. So having that in the calendar is helpful, but we're always on the lookout of the listen. Just said it to Jim the other day. Look, when you go to these dinner parties or you have these conventions you're going to, or you meet a character or whatever, just write it down, drop it down. And we do. And it's because I produce so much other content, I need to come up with ideas all the time. And like I said earlier, I like to think of myself as a storyteller. And I was around storytellers my whole life, Irish Catholic, beer drinking big uncles that, were in the military and, played sports. And so I've got a pretty good treasure trove of stories. But with that, consciously thinking of everything that we encounter during the week as a potential topic is very helpful. And when the two of us are doing that, and we've both been on the earth for around 60 years, there's a lot of information to pull from. But I think that being conscious of it, being aware of things and situations in the context of what might be interesting on the show, it hasn't really been that much of a challenge.
So has there ever been a time where you feel like the show's gotten stale? And can you share, maybe a story around that and the discussion that you had with your business partner about how you overcame that?
Yeah, I don't know that we've become stale, but I guess that would be up to the audience to answer rather than me. But the first time we had a guest on, it was a, pardon my French, was a shit show. It was just, we were all over the place. There was no structure to it. We were interrupting each other. It was like, oh man. So we didn't even publish that one, but we got back on the horse and said, let's not do another guest until we have a sit down and discuss what we learned, what we did wrong. We've had one of the things that we did early, and I think I can take credit for it. I think Jim would allow me to take credit for it. Is we said, let's talk for 15 or 20 minutes before we start recording. And that has been a game changer. And it's the energy that brings, the currency that brings, the ideation. We often will come up with a topic in that 15 or 20 minute discussion, because I'll poke questions at Jim and he'll poke questions at me. What'd you do this weekend? Oh, well, I had my 16th annual high school football reunion picnic with the current team and all the coaches. I'm like, that sounds like a good story to me, So that 15 or 20 minutes beforehand, I would recommend that to anybody that wants to start podcasting.
Yeah, that's great advice, honestly. I do the same, just like what we did today. I like having a little bit of time beforehand just to talk, to get people relaxed. Work your way into a conversation. I think when you just like turn the recording on and go,
yeah,
that's a little startling for anybody, and almost no matter how long you've done it, because you need to relax into it before the show can actually get good.
Yep.
You've mentioned a number of times story, and I also think that's very important in a podcast. People need to relate, and the best way to relate with what you're talking about is through story. So speak to that a little bit for me. How do you weave that into your show? Is it just organic, or do you very specifically and intentionally lead it to that?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think we intentionally lead it to that. I suppose it has come in organically a few times, maybe more than a few, but we both kind of decided at the very beginning, this is in part going to be a storytelling platform. So that again, that conscious kind of awareness that's what's in mind. The other thing is the podcast is really kind of, and this, well, you've been in marketing your whole life. One of the most important things to do is define who your customer is, right?
Yep.
And because I can help almost anyone that has a question about professional advancement or development, my tendency is to want to serve everyone, and that doesn't work. And so what we've done is constantly tried to cut down on the range of whether it's demographics or worldviews or particular industries or whatever. When you start carving it down, the smaller you can get that, the more effective you're going to be. And it doesn't matter to me what it is, whether it's a podcast or a workbook, right, or exactly, a sales funnel or whatever. So we call it the Imperfect Men's Club, and we talk about stuff men talk about. And we've kind of said, well, what are men? Yeah, 30, 35 to 70. Because, life starts to come at you. You're cruising through your childhood and your 20s, and then it's like, okay, well, it's wake up time. Like, I'm having a kid, or I'm getting married, or I need to support a family, or somebody got sick, or somebody died. It's like, and I've found in my personal conversations, whether it's a stranger at Starbucks that I just start talking to, or a good friend, men are not encouraged to talk about these things in an open forum. Men are not. We're kind of damped down a little bit. It's like, don't show your emotions on your sleeve. I'm like, why not? Why not? And what you find when you start opening up that can of transparency is everyone's kind of going through the same shit. That's what I find,
Yeah.
So anyway, I got off on a tangent there.
No, I appreciate it, because it's true. And I think digging into some of those things is very helpful for an audience. And you're definitely right. The more niche and narrow you can define your audience, the best, the better it is. And sometimes it's hard for people to do that. It's just like brands, right? When you talk to people, who is your direct target market? Who do you define exactly? What does this picture look like? Brands really struggle with that sometimes. Podcasting is the same way.
Yeah, it's what's interesting. I think you'll find this interesting is Jim at the very beginning was far less interested in transparency than I was. I'm like, I want to talk about my kids. I want to talk about my mother killing herself. I want to talk about my brother having an addiction problem. I want to talk about everything, right? And he's like, whoa. Well, now he talks about everything.
That's great.
Yeah, it was an interesting evolution to watch right in front of myself, you know?
Well, and that raises a good point too. You know, people want to relate. And one of the reasons why podcasting is such a fantastic medium and why it's continuing to grow year over year and why we're having more and more and more people invest into listening to a podcast is you do get that opportunity to relate with somebody. And the more genuine you can be, the more you're going to build an audience that will come back consistently.
Yes.
So let's talk about overcoming burnout a little bit. You're 70 plus episodes in. That's a heavy load. And doing it on a weekly basis, week after week, there has to be at some point you saying, why are we doing this? What truly are we getting out of this? Can you speak to that at all?
You know, I'm not trying to avoid the answer, but I don't recall ever feeling burnt out. I get giddy when I get up on Wednesday knowing I'm going to record at 1:00. I think the other to keep it simple, I should say, I'm a big fan of simplicity. Once it was in my calendar and we had a few episodes behind us and I saw Jim getting energized by it, which is also, it makes it easier to have a partner because one of you can pick the other up, which we have both done for the other on more than one occasion. Because you're not, I told you earlier, I woke up a little anxious this morning. I mean, you're not your best self 24/7, 7 days a week. No one is, no one is. So I don't know that I felt burnout. That doesn't mean it's not around the corner, but I think that the cadence, putting it in the calendar, having both of us look forward to it, and now having the experience of 70 or so in the can, we've worked out a few kinks, so at the beginning, I suppose there was a bit of nervous energy. That's gone. That was gone a long time ago. And so, yeah, I have not personally experienced burnout, but I think to some of my earlier points, Monty, I think it's because of the simplicity of the setup, the simplicity of not editing takes a lot of pressure off, right? Being familiar with the process of editing and publishing. And I typically come up with the title for the episode while I'm editing, listening to the episode after the fact, So, but
what about days when you're sick? What about weeks when you go on vacation or that you have an obligation that takes you away from it? How do you guys manage that?
Yeah, I don't get sick. I don't remember the last time I was sick. I'm very conscious of what I eat and how I move around. And, at 63, I don't do the same things I did at 43 or 33, but full court basketball became yoga and walking, it's just, you just make adjustments, right? So I guess I should express my gratitude about that and thank God for that and my parental genes for that. But I'm responsible for that to some extent too. So Jim's gone traveling more than I have, and we figured it out. He was in Italy one time and he had a portable mic. The quality was not quite as good as it could be, but we decided to do it anyway. And then he got to tell the story about why he was in Italy, for a rugby tournament. So yeah, that's, I'm proud of our consistency. You guys are committed. Yeah.
No, you're committed no matter where you are, no matter what shape you're in. It's turn the mic on and let's go.
Yeah, I think we missed 1 week in 70. And I don't even remember why we missed it. So sorry, I don't have a better answer for that.
No, it's good. It's very impressive, actually. 7 years, a weekly show, week after week after week, only missing one episode.
I should say 70 shows, not 7 years.
I'm sorry, 70 shows. You're right.
Yeah, we're about 2 years in. Yeah, I go on other people's podcasts pretty regularly. You and I met, I think, on LinkedIn, but
Yes.
I on a weekly basis, I apply to appear on different podcasts that are related to the things that I do, where I think I can bring some value. And so I get to practice that way too, which is
Now
kind of
let's
fun.
talk a little bit about that. Why do you do that?
Um, I'm trying to get in front of audiences of people that are being served in a particular way by their podcaster, and what I know and what I do would also be very complementary to them. So I'm not taking their clients or customers or space. I'm bringing them complementary information. And like I said, excuse me, my area of expertise is kind of beneficial to everybody. I'm kind of like the doctor at the cocktail party. You're like, hey, I heard you're a career counselor. I got a couple questions for you. I'm like, here's my calendar. So it's fun. And what's interesting about it, Monty, is everyone does their thing differently. Like some people are very structured. Some people are very particular. I've had a couple people ask me to listen to like 3 podcasts and write a paper on it. I'm like, I'm not doing that. And some people are like, just hit the button and start talking, And
Yeah.
and I'm cool with any of it. One of the things I'm not good with is a script. I need,
Oh yeah.
I can't do scripts. And I would recommend that no one that's doing this uses a script. That just takes away all the authenticity for me.
Yeah, totally. I would absolutely agree with that. And you are right. Podcast hosts were kind of a breed in ourselves, but there's a broad range of podcast hosts and styles. I do agree with you. I do think that going on other people's shows is a benefit and a value. You get to see how other people do it, and you get to experience something different. You are speaking to a little bit different audience anytime you're going on somebody else's show. So it's always a value to do it. And I highly recommend anybody who's listening, if you are thinking about doing podcasts, start there.
Yeah.
Become a guest and just reach out to different podcasts. There's a number of utilities that you can find online that will help you in becoming a guest for people's shows. And it's a fun process. I recommend it highly.
Yeah, I use a service that is free. They have a paid up service, and I get 2 emails a week on Monday and Thursday. And there's usually about 10 shows. They also have a list of people interested in being guests, which I don't take advantage of yet, because it doesn't complement what we're doing yet. But there's usually, out of the 10, there's usually at least 1 or 2, sometimes 4 or 5. Marketing stuff, sales stuff, entrepreneurship, personal development. I mean, my stuff is complementary to a lot of different things, and it is fun. You're correct. It's fun.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. Yeah, exactly. You do find that guest that sometimes is a little bit too restrictive.
Yeah.
And that does get a little bit challenging. But
Hey,
let's talk about your audience a little bit here, Mark.
Okay.
So you're doing a weekly show. How important is the number of listeners to you? How important is subscribers to your various channels? And, how are you addressing feedback from people for what you're doing?
Yeah, we're just very good questions. That we're just now talking. Actually, Jim and I just made a decision, because one of the challenges when you have a partner is there's 2 cooks in the kitchen, and you don't agree on everything, but you don't want to make singular decisions without bouncing things off the other person out of respect for the other person. So we wrestled with that for a few months, and we finally just said, Jim said it actually, and I jumped all over it, because we were spending a lot of time trying to figure this out. Because the consulting work that he does is different than the consulting work that I do. But the content and the people, he's been out on the road talking about this, because he goes to a lot more conventions and events than I do. I don't do any of that stuff right now. And he comes back every week saying, man, I brought it up, and all they wanted to do was talk about the podcast, And so that kind of feedback is very helpful. But we're not focused on any numbers right now. For different reasons, because as you well know, if you want to start building a funnel and pointing people to that funnel, that's a whole other body of work. And as we as entrepreneurs know, when you choose to do something, you have to not do something else, right? And I'm pretty comfortable doing what I'm doing right now. And I think that all of our content is evergreen. So we can throw it in the faces of anyone we want, whenever we want, and it'll be relevant, with the exception of maybe a little bit of politics, but we try not to go too deep into, because it's a rabbit hole you can get lost in.
For sure.
So that's not the numbers isn't a big deal. What was the third prong in your question? The third part of your question?
I don't even remember, which is my mistake. I hate it when I ask people more than one question to answer, because that's what happens. But I try and keep it to just one. So,
no, your audience. You asked about the audience. So yes. Yeah. Like I said, it seems to be mostly men.
Yes.
We do have a conservative worldview, generally speaking. So that's the kind of people we attract. And it seems that they're probably 35 or 40 to maybe 70-ish. I literally just had, and this was one of your questions, so if I can jump the fence and lead right into it, please allow me to.
Sure, go for it.
So I had a mentor for probably 6 years. Guy taught me everything about recruiting. We built and sold a couple of companies together. First one I was a minority owner in, and he funded the whole thing. Second one I did on my own with another buddy of mine who also worked for him. So he taught me a lot. Very wise fellow, extremely bright, and just said to me one day after I'd worked for him as a permanent recruiter for a while, "You want to help me start a consulting company?" I said, "Well, tell me what a consulting company is, and I'll tell you whether I want to start one with you." And we had a lot of fun. He said, "I'll fund the whole thing. I'll pay you, and you'll do all the work, and I'll tell you how to do all the work." And it was like drinking through a garden hose. Well, long story short, he sold the company, went back to Boston, which is where we're both from. I'm in Florida now. And we lost touch. Life got in the way. He got married, had some kids. I was deep into my own company, having kids and building a house, and we just lost touch. And we didn't have as much in common after hours as we did during work. He wasn't an athlete. He didn't do that kind of stuff. So anyway, we reconnected like within a year ago. He reached out on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, old buddy, how you doing?" I'm like, holy shit, Paul's calling, Anyway, we got on the phone. We've had a few conversations, really wonderful reconnecting. We all need to do more of that. I dropped a lot of balls in that space, but so he sends me a LinkedIn post or message the other day and said I was driving in my car with my 14-year-old son for 8 hours, taking him to a squash tournament. And we turned on the Imperfect Men's Club and knocked out a bunch of episodes. He said, "Keep going. You guys are doing great work." And I'm like, maybe you want to cry, Yeah. So not only did he do that, he did it with his kid,
Wow.
Which I thought was awesome.
That is awesome. It's that's the kind of feedback you love to get, right? I mean, people just saying, "Yeah, keep it up, keep doing it." It's rewarding. Is there any advice you'd give to somebody that's listening right now that's considering starting a podcast, trying to determine how to do it?
I think it's essential that whatever you're talking about, very well, but more importantly, you're passionate about it. It's personal to you. The reason I stayed in recruiting after just stumbling upon it, when I knew I was going to become a father to support my family, is because I was able to help so many people. The first guy I placed, Monty, was an electrical engineer with 3 kids, single father, and he was about to lose his home. And I found him a job. And wow. I'm like, this is God dropped me on the earth to do just this.
That's amazing.
So when I talk about this stuff, it's personal, and I think that comes across. I'd like to think it comes across, I get choked up on my podcast frequently, So anyway, I think you have to have something that, to your point at the beginning, that you can talk about consistently over a long period of time and not get stale or bored or burnt out. And in order to do that, I suppose you have to take a chance, and discover whether you happened upon the topic that you're passionate about or not. And maybe you do, maybe you don't. And maybe I just got lucky. But I also like talking. I was out with a friend the other night having cocktails who I don't see enough. One of my best friends, just one of the finest men on the face of the earth. And he had asked me during our conversation, I got this young kid that used to be a neighbor, and he's 25 and he needs help. And I think you're the perfect guy to help him. Would you do me a favor and get on the phone with him for 30 minutes? And I said, yeah. I said, maybe you can do, he said, maybe you can do for him what you did for me. And I had hired my friend 15 years ago, and he worked for me for a while and then worked with me for a while. And then we became just wonderful friends. I said, well, what did I do for you? He said, you gave me confidence. I'm like, wow, that's a very nice thing to say. And I asked him to explain what he meant by that. And we had a real fun time talking about it. But hopefully that's what I bring to everybody, whether it's from the podcast or the other work, is a level of clarity about something they're confused about, and confidence comes when you get clarity. Confidence comes with clarity,
I think it's great advice for podcasters to pick something that you're passionate about. If you're passionate about what you're going to be talking, to people about on your podcast, then it gets a lot easier. Number one, you don't have to invest so much time into prep. Number two, you're going to enjoy it a lot more. And number three, that comes through in spades when people are listening or watching your show.
Yeah.
And, and I think that where a lot of podcasts fail is they're trying to fit something into a box for either a business reason or some kind of something that they're not really passionate about, but they think that it's going to serve in some way. But if you can bring in that element of, I just love doing this, I just love these topics, it always shows. It always comes out.
Yeah. It's a cliche, find your passion. I get that, just like leadership has become a cliche, non-existent leadership, I must say. But yeah, everyone has something. Everyone has something, I think of the topics that come out of my mouth because I'm a middle-aged man, it's marriage, kids, divorce, illness, health, exercise, spirituality, meditation. The list just goes on. I love talking about all that stuff,
So let's talk about the future of your show then a little bit. What's the plan for the future? The next 70 episodes? How do you plan on growing and evolving?
Yeah. So back to my earlier point about Jim and I deciding, we said, we definitely don't want to stop doing this. Like, we were emphatic about that, but we have to fix this confusing the client thing. It's like, do I talk to Jim or do I talk to Mark? What is it I talk to them about? Do you guys have a package? Do you have a course? What are you guys doing? And we just decided, like recently, Monty, like a couple of weeks ago, let's just keep doing it. And then we can individually bring that audience wherever we want to bring them to, whatever we want to bring them to. And so, and I'm dabbling deep into leadership training right now. Somebody found me by listening to the podcast on LinkedIn and asked me if I did leadership training. And I said, well, I've been doing it for 30 years. I just never called it leadership training. So if you want to collaborate on what it looks like, he goes, no, man, I'd love to do that. Then I can have a tailored, custom, proprietary delivery from you to the people I need to get through the program. And that's been a lot of fun, So I'm just going to keep. The other thing that I lead with outside of some of my other interests is, you can get on my calendar for 30 minutes and you can tell me what's going on. And I can tell you in 30 minutes whether I can help you and then how I can help you. And so I'm just going to keep pointing people at that and see what happens. I've got multiple things going on. I'm comfortable the way I'm living right now. I have a lot of flexibility and I'm living the life I really want to live. But there's more. I'm always going to strive. So I guess I really don't have an answer to what that looks like, but I'd be surprised if we stopped anytime soon, and we're going to utilize that platform to attract our audiences to whatever else we want to bring them to. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. You'd mentioned that you'd brought a couple of guests on from time to time, Is that something that you guys are looking to try again in terms of bringing additional people into the show and getting their feedback? Or have you determined, nope, it's me and my partner, and that's the best way to go?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I think that it probably, I kind of like to figure it out. But when you have two hosts and one guest, it's very challenging. That doesn't mean we can't figure it out. But I think the other thing that we discovered is that one of us has to take the lead and be the question asker. We can't both ask questions, and we determined that I was probably better suited to that. And so I think we'll try it again. The thing is, Jim's got some pretty interesting connections. He through sports, he knows some professional athletes, and he knows some sports agents, talent agents, and he's a one percenter. So he lives among some interesting, powerful people. Not that I don't, but he's got a deeper bench than I do with regard to interesting people. So yeah, that could be exciting.
And a lot of times, bringing those people onto the show increases your audience, because people want to hear from those people. I mean, quite honestly, the Joe Rogan show, the only reason Joe Rogan has become one of the most famous podcasters is because of his guests.
Yeah.
If it was just Joe Rogan being Joe Rogan and, on a weekly basis, I don't know that he would have ever become what he is. But he always has very interesting people and conversations.
Yeah, most of the time he does. And he's developed a really good skill. I think his transparency is another one of his gifts. I think he's not shy about asking anything, and I love that. And I don't listen to him 3 hours in a row, but I'll get the 15, 20-minute sound bites, and they're usually fun. They're usually very interesting. And he goes to places where you're, quote unquote, not supposed to go, or you're not supposed to talk about. I love doing that.
Well, and everybody wants to go there, from a listener standpoint. We're always like, would you please ask this? Because I'd love to know that. And you're right. He does a great job of doing that. It brings me to another point that I'd like to ask, and it's, we can start wrapping this up, but how long is your show? Joe Rogan's is 3 hours. How long do you go?
Yeah, we wrestled with that a little bit. We were a little long-winded at the beginning, and we were doing 60, 65, 55 minutes. And it was probably a few months ago, we just decided we're gonna no shorter than 30 and no longer than 45, because that fits in it. You can, if you want to listen to that at 1.5 speed, which is what a lot of people do, that's a digestible amount of time, at least in our experience. So I
fully agree with that. I feel like 45 minutes that's typically what I shoot for with my show as well. Just because, like you said, at 1.5 speed, people can consume that while they're working out. They can, take a lunch break and get something in, and it's been fantastic. Mark, it's been great having you on the show. You've had a lot of information that you've given us. I hope for all my listeners, it's been very beneficial to you if you're looking to start a podcast or if you're just in the throes of it. I hope there's been some helpful advice that you can benefit from greatly. So thank you, Mark, for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, Monty, that was a lot of fun. I appreciate you having me, and maybe we'll do it again sometime. That was great.
Fantastic. Look forward to it.